Hello, Kansas and Western fans. It's time for episode number 44 of the construction of the Kansas and Western HO scale model railroad. For the last 2 weeks, I was tasked with continuing work on the Royal Gorge Route. So we'll focus down there to begin with, and then we'll do a full layout tour for those of you who might be new, and to remind everybody all the different voting options for this weekend. All right, moving on. Down here at the Royal Gorge Route, let's see if I can remember everything that I got done. First of all, I got all these signals in. I got 2 down at this end and 2 down at that end. They are not working yet. I have not quite figured out how I'm going to work the signals. Initially, I didn't really want to mess around with doing signals based on track movements just because it was a level of wiring and electronics I didn't really want to mess with. However, even these simple ones, let's see if I can grab this. Even these simple ones, just a single light, come with 4 wires and a plug, if you can even see that. There we go. So either I'm going to have to just cut it down to 2 wires for a basic 2-wire operation, or figure out how to make these things work. So that's another adventure in and of itself. Anyway, moving on. I put these pictures back that I've had for quite a while of prototypical photos of the Royal Gorge Route. You can see the river there, the Royal Gorge train there on the right. To remind myself of the colors that I'm trying to go for. Now, granted, these are just 2 small sections of the Royal Gorge Route, and there are lots of different colors, but one thing that's pretty standard is that coloring of the rock right along the river, especially the riprap that's been dumped in place over the years by the railroad to help keep the tracks from washing away. And so what you've seen here is all of this brown landscaping rock that I have down there. I've started to paint with a couple different colors of tan to try to make it look more like this, and I think I've been successful in that. It's a little bit uniform, but if you look at the photos, there isn't a whole lot of difference in color there either. Now there is a little bit of gray, and I do plan to come back and add some gray, some light grays to this, but I think it looks a lot better than the brown rock that I had before. So I'm very happy with that. You can see I've also added some trees. I still have to do a lot of underbrush, weeds, bushes, and things like that, because you can see how over the years it's just kind of taken hold, which I'm sure the railroad appreciates because vegetation helps to hold dirt in place and rock. So I have a lot of that yet to add, but that's something I really have only barely dabbled in, and it's not something I really want to screw up. So just kind of nervous to start that yet, but eventually I'll have to get there because every other aspect of this scene will be done, and we are starting to get there. As you can see here, I've got the road completely done. I've got it all striped. I've got all these cracks in the road filled with tar, as you could say. It's actually just flat black paint, but I think you get the idea. And I've started dabbling more with doing tile grout gravel. This would be more gravel, roadside gravel, or shoulder work. But this is it's a little bit more splotchy than I would like, and that's because I chose not to use a strainer to strain it this time, because I didn't want to make a huge mess given the small area, and I think it'd be better off just getting a small strainer to use it, because I just really don't like the look of it. So I'll come back and touch that up. And then there's a spot where I had way too much glue when I didn't need glue at all, because you can just use water for this tile grout. So I have to come back up and clean that up. All right, what else do we have here? I've got the fascia in. It looks very nice. I've got a little bit of contour following here where it's cut out for the river. I might come back and cut that out some more. I haven't decided yet. I wanted to make sure I had plenty of left over because I do plan to add resin here at some point, and you definitely want to have a lip to make sure you catch the resin. And then you can also see I haven't yet sealed that seam yet, so I got to come back and do that. So I can go ahead and scenic right up to the fascia, and then definitely seal this up really well so the resin doesn't leak out. So more to do on that. But along with the fascia, I've gone back and added the labels, which now stand out much better against the black. So very happy with that. And that control panel I moved up to its proper position. When I first installed it, I wasn't exactly sure what the height would be of the foam before I laid it. So I just kind of left quite a bit of extra and let it hang down until I got the foam in place and I was ready to put the fascia up. So I just shifted the whole thing up to match the rest of the fascia, so that worked out pretty well. All right, let's see, moving on. So I've got all the rock in place around the curve. Got this culvert integrated here, all the way around to that point. I haven't finished this culvert yet. I'm not sure how I want it to sit. I think it's sitting too low given what the resin's going to end up doing. And I still got to figure out if I'm going to make this a pond or just some kind of a drainage area, marsh area. I'm not sure. So I'm stopping with the rock there until I figure that out. And then on the interior part, I've decided to make more of this just cliff, or not cliff, but just rock in general. I'm going to be carving it, but it's not going to be a whole lot of this rip-rap look because with no road here or track along this edge, nobody's going to be dumping rock off the side to make sure it doesn't erode because there's no activity there. There's no human activity there. So this is just going to be a lot more natural. It's just some work that I need to do. All right, back this way. So I've got this hill cut mostly done. You can see I've got trees all the way up to the edge of the backdrop, which is kind of where I'm stopping. I'm hoping that with the backdrop kind of blending in color-wise more or less to the rock face, which that part's not been painted at all yet, so I have to do that, that the eye just starts to ignore it because it recognizes there's nothing to see up here, and so it focuses your attention more back to the track. Because I didn't want to do a 2-inch strip of backdrop all along here because we are trying to model the gorge, and if you're looking at eye level from the road across to the tracks, you're never going to be looking way up there. At least that's the hope and the idea. But for this cut, I'm very pleased with how it's turned out so far. I'm not done. I need to add a lot more trees over that greenery. I need to add some variety to the greenery, some bushes, maybe a little bit of different colored grass, maybe some taller weeds, but I think it blends into this backdrop scene fairly well. And we got some variety here, so I'm very happy with how that's looking. A lot more work to do yet, but happy so far. And then down here to the bridge, I've got these bridge supports integrated into the scene. The track is not yet reattached because I still have to do more work underneath the bridge. It's far too uniform and flat, so I need to develop this area further and then figure out how to integrate that into the river itself. So I don't want to have that put into place just yet because I'm just not done working under there yet. But for now, it's just sitting in place. All right, what's next here? Let's see. I've got this drainage bridge sort of in place. I've got the foam that was stacked there, carved and painted. I had to gouge this foam out a little bit more here to create kind of a reason for this bridge to exist. I'm not super happy with the paint. It kind of all turned into one gray color, so I need to go back and modify that. And it reminds me, along this whole rock face, it is not done yet. There are lots of flat places where I want to add gravel, loose stones, bushes, shrubbery, whatever else that grows out from the rock. So it is still not done, but it looks a lot better than it had. And back to this bridge, I've got the bridge cut to shape. Referring to the photo that I have from a viewer's YouTube video, you could see how the bridge is more or less integrated into the rock there, especially there. And I think it's because they just put forms up to make the walls for the bridge and to make sure it's all connected to the supports. But from there, they didn't really care where the concrete went. So that's what I'm going to have to try to figure out, is to integrate these bridge segments right into the rock. And I think the best way to do that is just to put a blob of joint compound in place, kind of smash the bridge into it, and then maybe sand it or form it to the edges. And I think that'll give me the look that I'm looking for. So happy with how that's turning out so far. It's definitely a unique thing to add, but we'll keep moving forward with that. I think that is it for Royal Gorge Route work. That's kind of a tongue twister. So we'll go on with the tour of the rest of the layout. Over here to Canon City, one thing I figured I was going to do is, in reality, you have the Royal Gorge Railway train station, and then just to the west of that, there's a small park and a couple of cabooses that they've connected together to make a restaurant, I believe. So I'm going to try to reproduce that look. There's some interesting decking that's been built around the cabooses for some outdoor seating, for dining. So I think I'm going to try to scratch build that at some point. And then over here, I believe it's called Veterans Park. And that's across a small street from the station, or from this park where the cabooses are. So I'm going to try to reproduce that to fill this empty area here. So generating more ideas as I work on other areas. All right, down here to the Portland cement plant, still do some structure work and get all this track weathered and ballasted. Still have to do the scenic work to integrate these portals. We'll move to the other side of the layout. All right, here we are down by Pueblo. All this track is laid and is working, except for these final 3 spurs that actually go into the mill, because I need to finish the mill structure first. So once that's complete, I can get these tracks done, and then all we'll have left on the entire layout to lay track is that single spur into the refinery. And we move around here to La Junta Yard. Track weathering and ballast needed. Backdrop, obviously. Just need to finish the final support for this bridge. Get a piece of foam put in here so we can properly support the bridge. And that highway bridge will be done, except obviously for weathering and striping and whatnot. And then got to figure out the trestle situation for this river here, King Arroyo. Now you wrap around here to Lamar. Just need some structure work done to finish out these industries here. Track weathering and ballast and a backdrop. And over here to Holly. Holly's all jammed up with rail cars because I'm still trying to finish adding all my cars to a spreadsheet for future JMRI use. So this is how I'm cataloging them. I'm moving them from the upper level to the lower level to keep track of what's been done. Holly just needs some more structure work. Obviously the backdrop's in place. I've got a good start on the ballast and track weathering, so I just need to finish that. And then this thing will be moving along pretty fast. It's all going to remain pretty flat in here because that's the way it is in reality. So I just have to finish the structures and build this road and crossing that's going to be right here, where I have the grade crossing pads here. And now that I've done that road in the Royal Gorge Route, I'm not afraid of doing roads anymore. I haven't done any crossings yet though, so I'm still nervous about that. And up here to the helix and Holcomb Power Plant. Holcomb Power Plant still needs a little bit more structure here on the end and that empty space to finish out the power plant itself. And then it's just a matter of finishing out the substation. There's a little bit more yet to do there. I'm going to have to figure out if I'm going to tie power lines into the plant itself. I need to do some prototype research on that to see what would be done. But before I do any of that, I need to finish all the groundwork, ground cover, add a coal pile back here, and so on. And then if you've noticed, I've kind of been doing the fascia as I've been doing scenic work on these scenes. So kind of when I reach that point, I start to put the fascia on because I want to integrate the fascia with the scenes. And you can see this shininess. That's all caulk that I've used to make sure I seal that crack up so that when I add ballast or dirt or ground cover, it can go right up to the edge of the fascia without spilling down in between. So that's why I've been starting to do the fascia a little bit here and there as I start to work on the scenery for each scene. Over here to Garden City. Got some kits here I need to build, finish out these industries, and then track weathering and ballast. Over here to Charleston Yard, elevator, sorry. Need to build this house. Need to build a co-op office. That'll go in there. And then I'm going to start collecting the kits that I need to redo this elevator so it looks more like the prototype there. Wrap around this curve. I'll be putting a pond in here, maybe with some campsites for camping. There are a couple ponds between Wichita and points west in Kansas where there's like some local small private campgrounds, maybe a couple dozen campers or something like that. But that's a scene that I remember along Highway 54, which becomes 50 out farther west. But I think I'll go ahead and try to reproduce that there just because I camp as well, so it'd be kind of neat to reproduce a little campground scene. Over here to the Wichita Industrial Park. Tons of structure work to do here. And obviously track weathering and ballast. And a big old custom backdrop I'm going to have to figure out how to do. And we come into the Wichita yard. This being the BNSF side. Track, weathering, and ballast is the theme of the day, as it will be for a long time because there's a lot of track. And then obviously the big grain elevator. This is still just lots of sections of PVC just standing in place. They aren't tied together in any way. And that's something that definitely needs to be done just to avoid any knockover accidents, which thus far this thing's been standing for almost a year now, I think, and I haven't knocked it over yet, but you know how those things go. And obviously you need to weather it. I need to add a distribution house on the top. And moving down here, this note is because a viewer / friend of mine, Glenn Hoover, has donated these to the railroad. He's a big Montana railing fan, so he noticed I didn't have any of that equipment on the layout, so he just had to make sure it was represented, which is fine by me. I appreciate the donation. And then he's not a big fan of steam, and he was given this steam engine, this 2882, I think it's either a Mallet or a Berkshire, I'm not sure, I looked it up and forgotten. It's an old DC model, so it's not going to be able to run on my layout. I run NCE, and it doesn't work with DC, I guess. So it's not going to run, but I might figure out a way to display it somewhere. Either way, it's kind of a neat piece. It obviously needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but I appreciate that donation because I do want to have some steam on the layout for some excursion runs, just because it's always neat to watch that running gear run around. So thanks very much, Glenn, for that. I appreciate it. All right, moving down to the end of the yard. And this bridge isn't done. I still need to weather it, still need to put road stripes on, but I'm happy with the look so far. Back down to the UP side of the yard. And that's Union Pacific, for those of you who may not know. I know there's a lot of acronyms in the railroad world. Still need to build another grain bin of that size, I think, to put in this space. So this whole triangle that you see will be almost completely full of grain implements to work into this Cargill scene. And there's said grain implements. And we transition over here to Towanda. Still need to get a couple more house kits and figure how I want to lay this scene out. And don't forget, I'm going to be cutting this corner off, so it's going to be more parallel with the track, just to fill this space in a little bit more and allow me to build a little bit more road before it crosses that grade and becomes Main Street right downtown. So eventually the scene is going to look something like this. And then over here we transition to the Dorado oil field. Still need to build another one of these oil pump jacks, and then build a couple berms along the track here. And this is going to be Shumway, which is just a dirt road. And then there's a house off to one side. I think I might go ahead and build that just to kind of copy that scene. I'll see if I can get a photo of that printed up for next time so you guys have an idea what I'm trying to go for. And then over here to Mears and the El Dorado Industrial Park. Still have some more structure work to do in these areas, just to give a little more detail to these scenes. And then we're down to the El Dorado Oil Refinery. Lots and lots of refinery yet to build. And then last but not least, we transition in front of the electrical box over into Union Tank Car Company. So that is it. That is the whole layout. All right, now we'll open up the polling for this weekend. Remember, vote for any area that you would like to see me focus on, any aspect of the railroad. Just put it in the comments below. And then I've been reminded by a viewer of mine who doesn't watch these videos on a phone or a computer and just watches them on TV. And YouTube Analytics is nice enough to be able to share information like that. And there are a good portion of you apparently that are watching on TVs. And if you're not aware, typing anything on a TV is impossible if you don't have a way to do it. So the other option is if you click on the description for these videos, down below where it says, I think, About, if you click on that, it will reveal my email address. So if you really want to participate but can't type on your TV, just send me an email and just put in the title poll vote or something like that, so I make sure I grab your vote. But that vote goes until the midnight Sunday night, and then Monday afternoon I'll produce a poll result video and work plan to share which won the vote, and then what I do or what I'm going to do to plan to carry that out. So that's all I have for this week. I appreciate everybody's votes, comments, and questions. I guess that's it. Have a great weekend. We will see you soon.